Abraham Shakespeare could not read. And then he won the lottery. Quite literally, he won millions of dollars in a lump sum. And Abraham was a generous person. And as soon as he cashed that check, everybody had their hand out. And he helped them. Abraham could not say no to somebody that was in need. He had millions of dollars, and if they just needed a little bit of help to get them by, he would take care of them. But then, after a little while, money started to get pretty tight, and he was caught up in a lawsuit that really was not fair. He did not know what to do. This was a very stressful time for him. And then one day, a woman calls him, and she's incredibly kind. And she wants to help. She thinks that Abraham's story is so inspiring and she just had to get in contact with him. Now, she is a person that works in nursing and finance. So she's educated in the financial things that Abraham doesn't know. And also, she has the heart of a nurse. She just wants to help him. People had been borrowing and taking money from Abraham for years, and he just couldn't say no. And then when it came to this lawsuit, they were trying to take everything that he had. He didn't know what to do, and he was stressed out. And then his new friend, DeeDee, gave him some amazing business advice. She told Abraham, hey, I know they're trying to take everything from you. Your money, your home, your estate. But did you know that if you don't own it legally, they can't take it from you? So you should transfer your home and your bank accounts and your estate to me. Welcome back. It's another week. It's another Sinister. I'm your host, BOZE. I'm here with you every Friday. That wasn't an audio dub over. I just wanted to do that because I thought it was funny. We did it in a video one time. As you guys know, Sinister is a no bullshit look behind the curtain to what has happened with a lot of cases that you may or may not have heard of before. And also, we focus exclusively on female killers. I just find female killers extremely fascinating. Now, this week's story is a little bit interesting because you guys know, normally I really try to get down to the bone, and I think we do a lot of times about who is this person? What happened in their childhood? Why did they do it? I'm not just here to tell you the timeline of events or tell you the crime. Certainly no. I want to know why. This week is a little interesting because this is somebody that I don't think this happened in their childhood. I think they became this. DeeDee Moore was born July 25th in 1972 in a small place called Plant City, Florida. It's kind of a suburban town, but what I thought was interesting about this, and you know, you guys that live in Plant City, you'll know best, but of your town history, I saw here that it was originally a cotton center, and then they were like, you know what? Never mind. Let's do strawberries. That's a little less dark. And now over 3/4 of the nation's midwinter strawberries come from this place in Florida. So we are in Strawberry Town, and DeeDee's just a girl. She didn't come from a lot of wealth. She didn't come from a lot of money, but she's, you know, just kind of doing the middle class American dream. She's a cheerleader. You know, she's kind of cute. She wasn't overly popular. She was really just a girl. Like, think about somebody you went to school with that you're like, yeah, she was there and she was fine. That was DeeDee Moore. Okay, so let's say you're having some weird symptoms. You know you need a specialist, like an ear, nose, and throat or something. And you know your insurance is Anthem. Well, guess what? You can find a doctor in your area that's less than 10 miles away that has open appointments within the week by using ZocDoc. I guarantee it. Whether you're looking for preventative care or to treat a symptom, or honestly, lately I'm a big fan of go to the doctor and get your checkups so your anxiety gets a little bit lower when something does happen. Man, I can't tell you, now that I'm older, how much better I feel after I just go get that weird symptom checked out, or I just go get my annual physical for the year and just keep up with everything. And it was hard to do before because getting a hold of a doctor and getting something on the schedule, it's tough. It's annoying, okay? I know I say this every time I talk about ZocDoc, but it's true. Nobody likes going to their insurance website, scrolling through, looking through the doctors that have no reviews, by the way. You got to go and Google them and then do all this stuff. And then eventually you find somebody, you try to call, you got, somebody answers the phone, hates their job. Girl, I get it. And then you're trying to schedule and figure, it's a nightmare, right? Even just describing it makes me anxious. And you know what? My brain would just be like, nope, not doing that. And then I wasn't taking the best care of myself. So guys, I love ZocDoc. I am so happy that they're a sponsor on this show because it's like one of those things that I use myself, I actually trust, and I think is useful for all of us. And the best part is it's free. But I always ask you, let them know where you came from. If you want to try it out today, you can download the app or just use it in the browser, but go to ZocDoc.com/sinister. That's ZocDoc.com/sinister. Check it out. So after high school, she decided that she wanted to get into nursing. And for DeeDee, this wasn't just like, oh, nursing is a good job, I'll do that. She seemed to really have a passion for wanting to help people. Now, whether she really had the capacity to help is one thing, but she wanted to. She wanted to be the reason that you were saved or you were fixed. And she was like, I need this. I want this. One thing that I try to pay attention to when I'm going through these cases is I try to watch as many interviews or interrogations or anything that I can of these subjects. And DeeDee is very interesting. She has this air of desperation on her. It's the best way I can describe it. When she wants something, it's like, like it's actually quite strange. Now, she veers a little bit off of, bedside nursing, and she goes more into nursing administration. And she's actually managing bills, finances, and stuff like that for the hospital, but kind of trying to help people with these outrageous hospital bills. She cared about people, but her skill set was a little bit more in management. So she's working this job, and then in 1992, she met her husband, James Moore, and they married in 1995. This is why I said DeeDee Moore, so normal. So normal. The reason why we sometimes can get a lot of information on somebody's backstory or like a really traumatic childhood is when we go to court, sometimes the killer will say what happened to them, or sometimes there's testimony from other family members that witnessed bad things happening decades ago, but they didn't know who to tell or they didn't know who was going to do anything, but now it comes up in court, right? Well, DeeDee has been to court, and spoiler, DeeDee has been convicted. And there is just not a strong history of documented trauma with her. So there's nothing I can really infer. She really seemed to have a pretty normal life from, the early 70s till she got married in 1992 to James. Lived in a normal neighborhood, was a cheerleader, went to school, graduated, became a nurse or went to school for nursing admin, met a guy, married him 3 years later. But this is like chef's kiss, normal. Everything seems to be going right with DeeDee, but she wants more. And I think that's perfectly normal. Now, some things I can infer from her background is, she didn't come from too much money, and she really believed in her capabilities to help people. And she felt like business was the best direction for her. She really wants to run a business. So she's still young, she's in her 20s, and she works a couple of jobs to start to learn different things. At one point, she works sales for Nextel. And then she works in Mary Kay doing like sales and marketing and whatnot. She was juggling a few different jobs and learning different skill sets. And she said at one point she made like $30,000 selling Mary Kay. Back in the mid 90s, that's a pretty significant amount of money, especially if you have other income. So she was basically boasting, I'm good at what I do. She was doing so well that in 2000, she ended up getting a $45,000 loan for a black Lincoln Navigator. This was important because she wasn't somebody that grew up with a lot of money, but she knew that when she's selling products, she needs to look good. She needs to have a little prestige. She needs to look like she made it. So the car is pretty fancy, but she feels like it's also an investment in her business. Now, like I said, her sales in Mary Kay are nice, and she was making a little bit of money in some other gigs, but a $45,000 car loan in the 2000s is pretty crazy. $45,000 in 2000 is the equivalent of $84,000 right now. So even though I get it, she wanted to upgrade her car to look like, I'm doing well, I can take care of myself and I can take care of your life. It was part of the marketing point. This is like her buying a slightly used Porsche 911. I don't know. You guys in the comments, name an $84,000 car. It's insane, actually. Now, of course, DeeDee starts falling behind on these payments. She doesn't have it. This is a lot of money. I mean, guys, what is this? $1,500 a month for a car, probably? She doesn't have it, but she wants to keep the car. So she starts signing some bad checks. Just a couple here and there, no big deal. And a little bit of insurance fraud. Just a little bit. She just needed a couple $1,000s to, get by. DeeDee didn't have a history of fudging things financially, but she got into a situation where she had to figure it out. And for her, she was like, it's just so easy to write these numbers on the check and hand it over and walk out of the building. And that's kind of where it started, because she started getting away with it. And she was getting the things that she wanted. But Mary Kay is still not going that well. It's not going Lincoln Navigator well. And the car is about to get repossessed, but DeeDee can't have that. She's kind of concocted this life around her sales and her car and her lifestyle and her husband. And if the car goes missing, it shatters the illusion of what she's built. Unless the car gets taken from her in a way that makes her a victim. And then one day, that exact thing happens. DeeDee said that she was leaving the post office in Sydney, Florida, when suddenly 3 Mexican men with green tattoos came up to her and they threatened her in her car. They said, we're gonna burn you alive in your car. Actually, never mind. We're not going to do that because we like this car. So we're going to let you live and then we're going to take the car. And then she threw herself in a ditch and called 911 and told them that story. That was literally DeeDee's fucking story. 3 Hispanic men with green tattoos were like, hey, we're going to burn your life in your car. Never mind. Just kidding. Give us the car, bitch. Bye. Actually, one of the worst lies I have ever heard. And also, it's crazy to me that she didn't think that the police would, look at the records for the car. You're 8 months delinquent on this payment, but then suddenly somebody steals the car. Come on. So DeeDee goes really far with this. She's in the ditch on the phone with 911 while also flagging somebody down. She claims that she's also been sexually assaulted. So she goes to file a police report. She's rape tested and they question her and let her go. But this is kind of a buzzy story. I'm not sure if it's because people didn't believe DeeDee more or if it's just because it's wow, something crazy happened in the neighborhood. But somebody ends up coming forward and they had some interesting information 2 months later. He said, I actually know something about this. The car's on my property because DeeDee paid me $500 to keep it there and keep it from being repossessed. The police immediately determined that DeeDee Moore completely made up the crime. The investigators started to dig into her and they found out that she was just living way beyond her means. For years, she and her husband owed so much money to her landlord. And then by June 2001, her business account that she claimed was going well was already in the red. She had no money. The payments were overdue for her car. The payments were overdue for her multiple credit cards. And there wasn't a lot coming into the business. It's not like she had this big, $50,000 check that was going to clear all this debt out. She was just moving further and further and further into the red with no way out. And she knew it. So by 2001, DeeDee is being investigated for this really embarrassing lie. She has no money, and now the car company is calling up and they said, okay, bitch, we know you have the car. We need the money. Clock is ticking. Let's go. DeeDee had made a couple of partial payments just to keep it going. Look, y'all, you know how that go. And it worked, it kept them at bay while she was going through the investigation. But then eventually they call her and they said, bitch, we need the money. And she goes, I don't have it. I got robbed. My bank account got cleared out. There's a police report. And they said, okay, give us the police report number. And she was like, click. Like, she just, when she couldn't make any more partial payments, she basically was like, the money got stolen from my bank account. I was hacked. Cybercrime, something like that. So she is just stringing on, can't write checks no more, ain't nothing gonna clear. It is not working out. By 2002, DeeDee Moore finally files for bankruptcy. But she is not going down without a fight. She's like, it's time for me to start another business. And that is when DeeDee launches American Medical Professionals. They do nursing, staffing, business, and finances. DeeDee's company is here to help. There's something so dark about this person with severe financial issues, starting a business, handling other people's money under the guise of nursing and hospitals and care. It's like really creepy. DeeDee's still living in the same town and her reputation's not shot, but it's a little, so business is slow and DeeDee needs help. She needs help from someone who knows how to carve a way forward, who can bring more money into the business. Somebody like Abraham Shakespeare. I first set up my litter robot 3 years ago, and it was shocking to me how fast my cat started using it. I thought that I was going to have to train him on it. I thought, what if I spend all this money on it and he's scared of it? Like, what is possible? But honestly, listen, scooping kitty litter, it is a full-time job, okay? But we love our cats and we gotta do it. Unless you have a litter robot. The litter robot isn't just for you. It's for your cat to have a clean and happy home all the time. It cleans out excrement within minutes, okay? And I know this is already sounding really good, but stay away from those knockoff litter boxes and only trust the litter robot, which rotates sideways and does not have any closing doors. The safety mechanisms on this one are chef's kiss. That's why it's a little bit more on the pricey side, but don't worry. It has financing options and it's totally worth it. Look, I'm a big fan of it. Stanley's a big fan of it. He pees and poops in that thing about 3 or 4 times a day. And you guys know we clean out litter boxes once or twice a day. He always has fresh litter, always having a happy time. He's got a little cat hotel over there, okay? So if you want to get a litter robot, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your pet, or hey, get it as a gift. Girl, do you know how nuts I would go if somebody got me a litter robot? But look, I will say, it's got a price tag on it, so maybe you just keep it for yourself. But consider it, because what a gift. It has genuinely changed my whole life. Now, they have the best offer that I have seen so far for a litter robot. Right now, they're offering $100 off of litter robot bundles and an extra $50 off if you use our code. Just go to stopscooping.com/sinister. That's stopscooping.com/sinister. No off-brands. Keep your cat safe and clean. Abraham was born April 24th, 1966 in Lakeland, Florida. It's about 40 miles east of Tampa. And some of you might be interested to know that Grady Judd from Polk County actually commented on this case years ago because it was in the area. I know a lot of you love Grady Judd. I do too. I was so surprised to see his name in some of the articles. Abraham grew up in a very, very, very poor community. Like, this isn't just like, oh, they didn't have much money or, oh, their family was spread really thin. Like, no, the whole community was poor. Like, all we know is how do we get out of here and do we ever? Like, his neighborhood was that kind of place. Abraham was described as a boy that really kept to himself. He was very, very introverted. And one day he just stopped coming to school. He dropped out pretty early in the 7th grade, and he didn't get a lot of help with reading or any schoolwork. And so by 7th grade, he was pretty illiterate and he got no further education. Teachers are spread so thin. And then in an area like this, Abraham was not getting a lot of help. And then back home, he didn't have a parent sitting him down, teaching him how to read things, or, he didn't really pick up reading as a hobby. And so there was no practice. There was no one-on-one. There was no nothing. The boy could not read. I think that literacy and being able to read is actually something that some of us really take for granted. I mean, if you've ever seen videos of people realizing that they can read for the first time, it's like so incredible. It's so beautiful. There are words all around us at all times, and they help us understand where we are, what we're doing, what's going on. And Abraham lived in a world where he had no idea what those symbols even meant. And as he got older, he got further and further and further from being able to read. He did not have many opportunities at all. And so he lived a pretty difficult life. He picked up some odd jobs in like sanitation, like as a garbage man in a barber shop. He had a lot of emotional problems. He was getting into fights. He was not present for his child. Also, he didn't have any money. Abraham didn't have a dime. Like, he would steal shit. And like, honestly, these are all things, because you guys know I do true crime, that I'm like, don't do that. That's bad. Follow the rules. But like, when I know that the man was given no opportunities and can't read, I'm like, well, shit, you can't be stealing that. But what the fuck is he supposed to do? Like, how is he supposed to pay child support making $9 an hour? Abraham was dealt a really, really bad hand in life. And then he ends up having, he has his son, I mentioned the child support thing, and he kind of tries to turn his life around. He starts getting into church, he gets baptized, he gets a job as a truck driver's assistant. And so he's not a truck driver making good money, but he's trying to get to that, right? The truck driver's assistant is good for him because over the years, he's going to learn the roads, he's going to learn the maps. And this is something that he can actually make pretty good money with and do for decades to come. And he realizes this, so he starts working hard, but he's still not making a whole lot. One day, Abraham is driving with his friend. His name is Abraham Ford, and they're going down to Miami, and they stop at a little convenience store. Michael had stopped to get cigarettes and a drink, and he asked Abraham, hey man, you want anything? And he said, I don't want nothing to drink, but you know what? Let me get 2 lottery tickets, and I'll give you the money for it. And he said, okay. Michael gets lottery tickets. He gives them to Abraham. They make the exchange, and that's that. Now, let me tell y'all, this was a lottery for $30 million. $30 million that could be paid out year over year for a lucky winner, or they could take a big lump sum of $17 million. No matter what, it was life-changing money. And at 40 years old, Abraham Shakespeare won the fucking lottery. Oh my God. I can't imagine the shock. A lot of people, when we have a lot of money, we play the lottery, not just in hopes of hitting it big. We just want a little hope for a minute. We just want a little something to look forward to that might pull us out of this bullshit, right? For Abraham, man, when they read off those numbers, I bet you that man went into shock. Like, what would you do if you were about to win $30 million? Like, I feel this shock and joy and sickness and excitement and everything for him. And it's crazy. Now, you have the option of being anonymous for some lotteries. And for some reason, Abraham was not anonymous. He was on the news. His name was published. His photo was in the paper. Like, he was everywhere holding his big check. I mean, he was proud and nobody told him not to do that. Now, Abraham opts for the lump sum payment of $17 million. It takes a little off the top and it takes the taxes out. So now this money is his in cash and he decides to splurge a little bit. Now, he buys a $1.1 million house. I would say if you just got a lump sum of $17 million, sure, go ahead, get yourself that $1 million house. Buy it cash down, no interest. Okay, Abraham. But then he starts to give away some money to friends and family. He puts away $1 million for his son, which previously he was very much criticized for not being in his child's life and not taking care of him. The first thing he did was put away $1 million in a trust fund for his son that was going to appreciate as well. He then gives $250,000 to his stepsisters, both of them. He gives various cash to other people. He had a friend that he paid off $181,000 of their mortgage. Another friend, he paid off $50,000 of their mortgage. One friend that had a barbershop, he loaned him $60,000. Bro, $60,000 loan, he won't get that money back, But, Abraham at first was giving out all of this money. And then when he realized how quickly it was depleting, I just rattled off pretty much $1 million right there. He started putting some parameters down and then also asking people like, hey, can you pay me back? And they said, sure. They weren't paying him back. In fact, they were coming back with their hand open for even more money. It's like no amount of money is ever enough for anybody. And Abraham's trying to enjoy his money and splurge a little bit. But when somebody comes up and says, hey, I really need help. $5,000 or $10,000 for somebody that's in trouble. It's nothing to a millionaire, right? But it's everything to them. And he feels so guilty that he can just take away their problems. He just keeps doing it. Small amounts, big amounts, and they just keep asking for more. There's a sense of betrayal in that. Haven't I already done so much? And then there's another slap in the face where his friend Michael that went in and purchased the ticket for him and gave it to him, well, he files a lawsuit against Abraham claiming that Abraham actually stole the ticket from him and he owes him $1 million. Luckily for Abraham, a jury ruled in his favor after a grueling trial, but there's so much sadness in all of this when this money was supposed to be a happy moment. With this depression, Abraham is spending money very quickly. And after just 2 years of winning a $17 million payout, he only has $1 million left. I'm also really upset that the lottery teams don't have referrals for winners. Here's an attorney that you should put on retainer that's reasonable. Here's a financial advisor that you should, you know what I mean? I feel like if they just put a few small parameters in place and these people had a small team that was maybe $10,000 a month to handle all their shit, this is sad, and it feels very preventable. And I'm I can't believe nobody fucking told him. He needed help. And unfortunately, in October of 2008, somebody finally reaches out to help. And unfortunately, it's DeeDee Moore. She calls Abraham saying that his story is inspiring. And he is a kind and sweet, gentle soul that's incredibly generous. And not only does she want to tell his story, she wants to write a book about him. He's just that amazing. And DeeDee is saying all these things that Abraham has never heard before. And also, he is so alone and he is so down on his luck and he just can't trust anybody. Here's this woman that has a nursing background and she has finance experience and business experience. She could really help him. Not only does she present herself as somebody that can help, but they actually kind of start to hit it off as friends. They get along well. She's building a lot of rapport with him, and Abraham is gullible. He's gullible, vulnerable, and doesn't really know what to do next. So DeeDee starts to position herself as his financial advisor. Things moved very quickly. Between October 2008 in January of 2009, their relationship had progressed so much and Abraham trusted her so much that he transferred his home into DeeDee's company, American Medical Professionals, and then she helped him supposedly create an organization or an LLC under her umbrella, and then it gave her access to sign money for his account. So she basically had him transfer his entire estate to her, and then she created a dummy company so that rather than her signing as Abraham and pretending to be him, she legally could sign as this company and sign his checks, approve authorizations, approve transfers. She was a partial person in the company. Now, a lot of news articles reported that Abraham's house was worth $1.1 million, but in the property records, it actually said that she transferred his home with a worth of $655,000. Sometimes people fudge things on paperwork, but regardless, it was a very expensive home. After she transferred the home and had all of the equity in the home, she then went on to withdraw hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and also bought herself a Hummer, a Corvette, and a truck. And then she went on vacation. She later would claim in court that this money was a gift. Now, they've only known each other for a few months, but DeeDee starts to integrate herself in the remainder of Abraham's social circle. He's got a few friends and family that he's still kind of close with, and DeeDee starts to connect herself to them as well. One of the people was Greg Smith, his friend, and also the one that owned the barbershop that he loaned the $60,000 to. Now, I really doubt that Greg had paid back the $60,000, but, they were still friends. And when he met DeeDee, he was like, hold on, I don't trust this lady. Something don't smell right. And he was just not jiving with her. And that really frustrated her. But because Greg didn't really trust DeeDee, this kind of rang some alarm bells with Abraham, because to this point, it had just been her and him, just me. On top of that, he starts to get a little suspicious of her because he has access to his accounts, and it feels like the money is moving to places that don't make sense. And so he decides to confront her. And after that, Abraham goes missing. Abraham had been missing for a few months, but his family had heard him talk about getting out of town before, how stressful it was that people really just wanted him for money, and maybe he would leave. But when they hadn't heard from him by November 2009, they finally decided to file a missing persons report, and the police look into it. Nobody had seen him for months. But when they talked to friends and family, they said, well, maybe he left. Maybe he went to an island. Maybe he went to live on his own. And also, actually, there was a video of him saying that he was leaving. A video saying that he was going to Beirut. And the video was shot by DeeDee Moore. And also, he seemed kind of uncomfortable in the video. It was really, really strange. So much so that the police barely even took this into evidence at face value. Like, oh, could he be in Beirut? They just said, oh, this video's evidence. Who shot this? But it was still possible that he could have just left. Like, nobody is jumping to something darker yet, except for Greg, the barbershop owner, because he has his sights fixed on DeeDee Moore. He was like, I'm on to you, bitch, and you're not going anywhere. So he started questioning DeeDee, like, hey, have you heard from him? Where is he? And DeeDee's got a new story all the time. First, she said he's in Miami. Then he's in Texas. Then maybe he's on a cruise. Yeah, what happened to Beirut, DeeDee? What happened to that? Greg is just not buying it. And also, he knows his friend. And then the big red flag for him and his family is the holidays roll around, Thanksgiving, Christmas, nobody hears from Abraham Shakespeare. It just doesn't make any sense. He's not faking his death, It's like, send a postcard, make a call, something. He loved his family, and there were still a few people he was close to. So when he doesn't call for the holidays, everybody knows there's something going on. The detectives at Polk County, where Grady Judd is, they start to get involved because you know what? It is past Christmas and nobody has heard from this man since April. Bro, alarm bells. Nobody has heard from the fucking lottery winners since April, and we're just over here shuffling papers. In the very least, they really start to get involved, and the main lead they have is DeeDee Moore. They're calling DeeDee on the phone. They're showing up at her house. They're calling her to the station. And DeeDee starts to feel the pressure. And suddenly, after months of silence, Abraham's mom gets a text from him. It was kind of weird that Abraham was sending a text, but he also calls. And he assures his mother, I'm fine. What's going on? It was so strange. Months of radio silence, nothing during the holidays, no well wishes, but finally an agitated call to say, hey, lay off, I'm fine. But it was still strange. It turns out that wasn't Abraham at all. You're not going to believe this. It was Greg Smith, the barbershop owner. For the past couple of months, DeeDee had lightly manipulated him into thinking that maybe just maybe, Abraham was still alive, and we needed to let his poor mother that it was okay. So DeeDee offered Greg $300 because he needed the cash at the time to pretend to be Abraham and call Abraham's mother and pretend to be him. This is a weird scenario. I can only assume that Greg needed the money. And also, I can only assume that maybe he thought there was a world where Abraham was still alive and he needed to call and calm the mother or something. I have no idea. Honestly, I think he just needed the money. That's why I told y'all earlier, I can't let Greg be the hero in this story, because why the fuck did you make that phone call, buddy? Now, the mother doesn't really believe that this is Abraham. I don't know why DeeDee thought, like, hey, these two black guys are going to sound the same on the phone. But a mother knows what their child sounds like, okay? And it just wasn't really working. And then I think that DeeDee had maybe convinced Greg that maybe Abraham wanted him to do this or something like that. Like, she had manipulated Greg somehow, but I do think the money was a big part of it. But afterwards, Greg says he got a text message from Abraham. The text is short, but he supposedly texts Abraham and says for him to give him a call. And then Abraham texted Greg back, the barbershop guy, and said, quote, "I'll," with an apostrophe, "give you a call soon, period." It sounds like such a simple sentence to us, but Greg knew that Abraham Shakespeare could not have texted this sentence. He was completely illiterate. This weighs really heavy on Greg, and not too long after, he is approached by investigators and asked if he's willing to be an informant, and he says yes. Now, Greg strikes me as kind of a confused guy, because when he talks to the investigators, he is saying all these things that are total fucking red flags, but his energy is, I think it's possible that Abraham could be dead, and I think DeeDee might have something to do with it. Like, it's not definitive, but he's smelling shit in the water, and he's telling the investigators. So now they have Greg as an informant who speaks to DeeDee pretty regularly, and this is crazy. One of the few times that the internet did their job with true crime, because now in 2024 people just be going crazy, like on TikTok live with some crazy conspiracy theories. But back in the early 2000s, some people on a forum got pretty interested in this case, and they started producing property records, things that the police department said they needed a subpoena for and they couldn't get. These people online had somehow found the property records and the transfers. So the investigator is looking at this forum, and there's a woman named Cindy Parrott. She found the property records and news articles that interlaced with them, and she, along with some other people, found out that Abraham's home was the property of American Medical Professionals, DeeDee's company. Now, you and I knew that since the beginning, but the police didn't know this. They couldn't get the subpoena, and so they didn't have the records. But these people online found them, and they started posting them. And so the detectives are keeping up with this thread, and they're also ready to use Greg Smith. Like, we are zeroing in on DeeDee. Because look, y'all know, it's hard to catch a liar. It is hard. I mean, social media is around at this point. We're like roughly around the 2010s. And they're looking at DeeDee's stuff, and they see she's posting pictures inside of Abraham Shakespeare's home, almost a year after he hasn't been seen. Not only that, but she's living it up in his home. She's throwing parties, she's decorating, she's putting her little spin on it. Not like the property's just in her name. It's like she lives there, and it's like she's loving it. So one investigator had already been watching this thread, but then this guy, David Clark, who is like a full-on detective, he gets involved, and he was pretty impressed. He actually said, quote, "I get on the internet and I come across this web sleuths forum. You have 10 or 15 people finding property purchase agreements, financial records. I question, how are they getting this information? I need a subpoena to get it, but they've already got it. The information was accurate. They used it in the investigation." But then, this is crazy. The police department actually posts on the thread thanking the web sleuths for finding all this information. So now they're looking for more stuff. They're doing more. They are going after DeeDee hard. And then guess what? DeeDee shows up on the forum. She posted on the fucking forum. And she says that they're all crazy and she denies ever being involved in Abraham Shakespeare's disappearance. Bitch, can you guys believe back in the 2010s, we had the Facebook girlies looking for who did what, and then the police department commenting, and then the killer themselves. This would be like if there was a group about the Kohberger case, and then fucking Brian Kohberger and the police department commented on themselves. You know what I mean? Like, this was crazy. Then the case breaks wide open. Like, we know it's DeeDee. We just have to prove it. So they ask Greg if he's willing to wear a wire. Ugh, fucking Greg. Like, Greg, just be a hero, okay? Be a hero and be confident, okay? He has these up and downs and up and downs. He's integral to our case, but fucking Greg. So anyways, he wears the wire, and under the instructions of the detectives, he tells DeeDee, hey, I know you're under a lot of pressure with the police. I have a solution for you. Let's meet up in person, and I want you to meet this guy. So Greg brings this guy, and this guy is actually an undercover cop. And this guy says, hey, I need money, and I know that you have money. I will take the fall for you for $50,000. You have to pay me in cash, and you need to tell me where the body is, and you need to do X, Y, and Z. But I need to know that he's dead, and I need the details so that I can be credible. And DeeDee finally says, yeah, he's dead. He was shot. Now, DeeDee claims that he was shot by, quote, somebody, but she's confirming the details so that this guy can go in and take the fall for her. And the conversation goes really well, and he explains why he needs the 50 grand so bad, and she eats it up. So much so that she starts giving even more details. She said, she told Greg Smith later, hey, tell your boy to dig 6 feet down, and you'll find Abraham Shakespeare. And then, just to seal the deal, she even gives him the gun. She said that the other guy that did it, yeah, he gave her the gun. So, here's everything you need. Go to jail for me now. Goodbye. And then on January 25th, 2010, the authorities find Abraham Shakespeare exactly where DeeDee Moore said he would be, 6 feet under on his own property. DeeDee switches her story constantly. She said that drug dealers killed him. Then she said that her 14-year-old son might have done it. Yes, this is the caliber of the type of woman DeeDee Moore is. She is willing to let her own child take the fall for killing somebody. I also think that it's fucking crazy that she thought some guy was just gonna show up and take the fall for her for murder. Like, what type of entitlement is that? It's also wild to me that DeeDee felt like she could manipulate all of these people that needed money with Abraham's money to cover up his murder. Get this. So the prosecutors argue that DeeDee wanted access to more money, but Abraham was on to her and he told her no. But legally, she owned all of these assets. So when an argument broke out, they think that she just killed him. It was pretty planned, but they think that that's why it happened and that's what the motivation was. Next, when they start to talk to all the witnesses, all the people in his life, this woman came in like a parasite and connected to everyone in his inner circle and started to manipulate them using his money. At one point, she offered someone a $200,000 house in exchange for reporting a false sighting of Abraham. Then she sent Abraham's son $5,000 in cash for pretending to be him on another phone call. Abraham's ex-girlfriend, a woman named Centauria, said that DeeDee made her think that he had run off with some lady from the bank and that he was talking all this smack about her, and DeeDee wanted the ex to turn on him. She was trying to get in with the ex because she was still connected in Abraham in some way, and on the stand, she actually said, this was crazy to me. One of the witnesses said that DeeDee came to them and said, if you help me, I'll help you clean him out. She was so greedy and she wanted money so bad that she assumed everyone around her had no morals like her and just wanted money. So she's throwing out all of this money, his money, to manipulate the people in his life ultimately before she kills him. What a fucking demon, bro. What a demon. And this is why I said DeeDee Moore is an interesting character, because she's not someone where this all started from childhood. There is a clear pattern of escalation and getting away with it, and escalation and getting away with it, and escalation and getting away with it, all the way up into millions and millions of dollars and murder. Now, the money is a major motivator, but even worse, later on, the prosecution showed a video that made it seem like DeeDee was pretty linked to Abraham's killing. Sometime around April, in some Walmart footage, you could see her rushing around, buying large amounts of duct tape, trash bags, and plastic sheeting. Those items were later found next to his body in the grave. The defense barely made a case for DeeDee. And also, she had a bunch of strange emotional outbursts in the courtroom. DeeDee is a very desperate person. It's so interesting. Like, this is a core personality trait of hers. When she really wants something, she gets a little antsy, and it makes her anxious because she wants it so bad. I've never seen anything like this. Like, she's just really, and even in the courtroom, she's like not on anything. Like, this is just who she is, and she's got to have it, and you got to believe in her, and you got to like her, and you got to trust her, and give me the money. Like, she's desperate. She is the most desperate person that I've ever seen. You can see it in her actions. You can see it in her conviction. You can see it in her mannerisms. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 16 minutes. I love to tell you guys when I can actually find the time, how long the jury actually deliberated, because it shows how much they just didn't buy her bullshit. And they convicted her of first-degree murder and possessing and discharging a firearm.